I caught my wife cheating on 4K video, took revenge, filed for divorce, and rebuilt my life. Pleased with her efforts, she looked into my eyes and asked, "This was amazing. When will I see you again?" I smiled and replied, "I'll call you soon." She leaned in and grabbed the $100 bills from the nightstand, hesitating at the smaller stack of $100 bills. I said, "Take it as a tip." She grinned, took the second pile, and gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. As she walked to the door, she turned back and said, "Merry Christmas." Her mercenary look shattered my fantasy. Alone in the room, I realized there was no love, no companionship, just an expensive escape in a Las Vegas hotel. "Merry Christmas," I muttered, rolling over to sleep. When I woke, I reviewed the weekend. Despite last night's expense, I still had a $3,500 profit from blackjack. My goal was $5,000 by week's end, but it would be harder now. Each Vegas trip followed strict rules, only blackjack, no drinking or playing when tired, avoiding attention, spreading bets across casinos, and leaving once the goal was met. I had strategies like changing my appearance and varying my goals. I never played big money tables, preferring the $10 minimum. Sometimes I'd pretend to lose by making foolish plays after ordering drinks. I never cashed in all my chips at once to avoid detection. Despite precautions, I knew I'd eventually be caught and banned. I had a talent for numbers and a photographic memory, giving me an edge in card counting, which casinos considered cheating. I knew the risks, but started when I desperately needed money. Now it was a way to recover what I'd lost, though some things, like my career in Laura, were gone forever. Once a respected math professor, I now debated whether to hit or stand. Laura's betrayal and my rival's schemes had ruined me. Reflecting on my downfall, I wondered how this hand would play out. I remembered my first day at the university as an assistant professor. I was lost on campus, trying to find the math department when a student helped me. I then navigated the maze of offices to find the head of the department, Dr. Ben Stevens. After timidly knocking on his door, I was invited in by a loud voice inside. I met an elderly man behind a desk cluttered with files. "Ah, you must be Reed. Are you hungry? Let's get some food and Guinness on you," he said. That was my introduction to Dr. Stevens. Over lunch and a few beers, he insisted I call him Ben, and introduced me to everyone in the department. The next morning, hungover and unsure of anything, I returned to his office. He loudly discussed my class assignments and gave me a rundown of the school's dynamics for hours. The English department feuds with the Spanish department, nobody likes the French, and few find the German department. The Oriental languages are the rising stars. Chemistry gets along with biology, but not botany. Astronomy is laid back, history keeps to themselves, and poli-sci is always causing trouble. Sport teams are inept but overfunded. At lunchtime, Ben took me to a biker bar where he was well known for restoring motorcycles. He was working on a 1940 Indian Chief, and everyone was eager for the unveiling. After a long afternoon at the bar, I stumbled home, wondering how long my liver could keep up. The next day, still groggy, I went back to Ben's office. "Well, Reed, it was 50-50ths on whether you'd show up with a tattoo today," he joked. We discussed the upcoming student orientation and his management style, which gave professors a lot of autonomy. He then showed me my office, commenting on the pros and cons of each classroom. "The acoustics in your main classroom are terrible, but the bad heating will keep students awake," he said. He explained that office location indicated one's rank in the department. At the end of the hall, we found a maintenance worker painting a door with Annex Office of Dr. Jason Fader. Ben, confused and upset, asked what happened. The worker explained that he had been told Ben changed his mind about the office assignment. Ben calmly requested to see the office, clearly frustrated by the situation. Tom followed Ben's order and opened the door. Inside, the office was furnished with plush furniture, chic decor, and new equipment, including a state-of-the-art computer. Ben examined the setup and turned to me, saying, "It looks like Dr. Fader spent his entire budget updating your office, Reed. Congrats." He then instructed Tom, "Change the locks as ordered. Do not give a key to Dr. Fader. No one is to remove anything without my permission. Mission, the sign on the door will say Dr. James Reed." As we walked away, Ben said, "I've put you in the middle of a power play by our associate professor, but I'll teach him a lesson." I frowned. "I don't remember meeting him on Monday." Ben laughed. "You didn't. He ignored my invitation, probably because he's an idiot." We went to a pizza parlor, and many early arrival students stopped by to chat with Ben. It was clear he loved interacting with them. On Thursday, I finally met Dr. Jason Fader while working in my new office. Hearing the doorknob rattle, I opened the door to an angry man. "What are you doing in my annex?" he demanded. "Good morning. I'm assuming you are Dr. Fader." "I'm James Reed, the new assistant professor," I said, offering my hand. He ignored it. "What are you doing in my office?" he repeated. "Dr. Stevens assigned me this office with the furnishings," I replied. Fader went ballistic, ranting in the hallway. I stayed calm as he insulted Ben. "I don't care what that old fool said, you're leaving." "I will leave only if Dr. Stevens tells me to," I replied. He assured me I'd be out in minutes and stormed off to Ben's office. Ben's secretary, Mary, witnessed the rant, so Ben was forewarned. 30 minutes later, Fader returned, furious. "I'm here to get my furnishings," he said through gritted teeth. Dr. Stevens expressly said, "Only he can authorize." "Removal," I told him, sparking another tantrum. Finally, I suggested, "Join us for lunch with Dr. Stevens to discuss it." Fader told me to go screw myself. I locked my office and headed to Ben's office. Ben had promised to show me the best burger joint in town. As I bit into the cheeseburger, I admitted it was the best I'd ever had. Over beer, Ben and I compared notes on Fader's visit. It was clear neither of us would be getting a Christmas card from him. On Saturday, Ben hosted a faculty get-together at his house. I arrived early and met his wife, Terry. She graciously accepted the wine I brought and introduced me to everyone. Between conversations, Terry shared stories about Ben, making me like him even more. She revealed they couldn't have children, which had strengthened their bond but left them wondering what might have been. Terry gave me a touching compliment, saying Ben thought of me as a son. I was moved to tears. "Damn boy, I thought only Terry could make people cry," Ben joked, appearing behind us. He then took me to his immaculate shop to show me his restored 1940 Indian motorcycle, explaining how he had brought it back to life from a junkyard find. "Something this beautiful deserves a second chance," he said, and I agreed. As the party ended, Terry and Ben saw me out. Terry kissed me on the cheek and invited me to dine with them any time. Ben joked, "I already see too much of you during the week and I won't let you bother me on weekends," with a twinkle in his eye. He suggested I help him restore his bike projects on Saturdays. That first semester, I relied on Ben for advice and soon saw him as a mentor. We had a standing lunch date every Thursday, and after the first week, Ben insisted on treating me. I started mastering my courses and focusing on math theorems. I had a natural talent for numbers, which earned me a nerd label in high school. As an undergrad, I excelled in math and continued to pursue my studies, earning my master's and doctorate. Despite job offers, I chose an assistant professorship to work on equations with Ben's guidance. We spent afternoons working on equations, eventually publishing variation and a proposed answer to the Hodge conjecture. The paper sparked debates and brought attention to our work. However, Dr. Jacob Fader criticized it, causing some internal conflict. In my second year, I continued refining my thesis with Ben as my sounding board. My office moved next to Ben's, indicating I was being groomed for his position when he retired. I also received tenure, which Fader opposed, accusing Ben of favoritism. An independent review cleared Ben, but the infighting took a toll on him. When I became an associate professor, the assistant professor position reopened. To avoid criticism, Ben formed a vetting committee including Fader. Fader opposed any candidate favorable to Ben or me. Then Laura Simmons walked in. Her credentials and charm impressed everyone, especially Fader. After she left, Fader raved about. Her and Ben and I agreed. Laura became the new assistant professor. As we left the room, I told Ben, "Give Laura my cold, drafty classroom." He asked why, and I said, "Because with her looks, every male student will need a cold shower." He laughed and kept my classroom, but reassigned my freshman courses. At Ben and Terry's annual party, I saw Laura alone with an empty wine glass. I approached her, and she smiled. "Hello, I'm James Reed," I said. "Hello, Dr. Reed. It's an honor to work with you," she replied. "Call me James, or Reed, like Ben does. Reed suits you. Call me Laura," she said with a smile. Ben joined us, joking, "Reed, you've proven yourself as more than a poor lunch companion." He then offered Laura a tour, adding, "Let's go find my wife in this crowd." As I watched Ben lead Laura away, I felt a void. I made sure to keep bumping into her at the party, engaging in small talk. We grew more comfortable around each other. I got her another glass of wine and saw her talking to Jason Fader. When I handed her the glass, she thanked me. Fader looked annoyed and dismissed me from their conversation. I didn't want to cause any problems for Ben or Terry, so I joined Terry, who watched Fader and Laura with disapproval. "This is the first time Jason has attended one of our parties," she said. "It's obvious why he came." "Where's Ben?" I asked. "He's hiding in the shop, disgusted by Jason." "Are you going to join him?" Terry responded, "No, I'll head home. Tell Ben I'll be at the office tomorrow and we'll help him with the BSA bike in the evening," I said, leaving with a hug from Terry. Saturday, I spent the day at the office, but couldn't stop thinking about Laura. Frustrated, I went to Ben's shop. Ben greeted me with, "About time you showed up, I had to replace you with another mechanic." Laura was there in casual clothes. Clearly, no work had been done. Laura and Terry decided we need to go out to eat, and it's your treat, Ben continued. We laughed and agreed. We went to an Italian restaurant that ignored the dress code due to Ben's long patronage. The bill was high, but sitting next to Laura made it worth it. Later at a jazz bar, I asked Laura to dance. As we swayed, she leaned away and said, "I should be angry with you." "Why?" I asked, puzzled. "You left me with Jason Fader. He made my skin crawl and told me to follow him home." I apologized, and she said, I could make it up by taking her out on Friday. We started dating and soon became exclusive. Despite Fader's continued attempts to see Laura, she joined Ben and me in our work on the Hodge conjecture, and Fader often tried to interrupt us. He even offered to help but failed to drive a wedge between us. After the school year, Laura and I got married. For 4 years, I was blissfully married to the loveliest woman. I enjoyed my work and friendship with Ben and restored a Harley-Davidson Electra Glide. The only issue was that the Hodge conjecture still eluded me. One day, frustrated with my equations, I thought about how to inspire kids in math. I realized our elementary education was lacking and conceived an idea to create entertaining math shows for kids using the university's broadcasting system and celebrities. Saturday evening, we went to Ben's to grill steaks. After dinner, I brought up my idea. Guys, education at the preschool and elementary levels is failing American kids in math. We need to create entertaining shows that teach basic math principles. We can use the university's broadcasting system and invite celebrities to teach math in a fun way. This sparked a discussion, and I saw Ben and Laura getting excited about the idea. I planned to push for them to co-host the shows. Once everything was set, the shows premiered to great success, syndicating nationwide and generating revenue for the university, as well as enriching Ben, Laura, and me. Laura and Ben became well known, while I stayed busy writing scripts. This break from the Hodge conjecture was a relief. I also co-authored several math textbooks and discussed having children with Laura, but she objected to the timing. Unexpectedly, Ben announced his retirement to emeritus status, recommending me as his replacement. I was emotional at the thought of replacing him, but prepared for the process. At the open hearing, I was ready for my promotion, but things took a turn when Karen Hudgen accused me of coercing her into an affair. I protested my innocence, but the committee allowed her to continue. I saw Laura in tears and felt devastated. Karen's roommates corroborated her allegations, and Laura left during the testimony. Given the chance to speak, I denied all allegations and requested an investigation. The committee quickly decided not to promote me. I left, finding that Laura had packed and left me. I went to Ben, who was shocked and supportive, suggesting we fight back, but my priority was finding Laura. Despite my efforts, I couldn't locate Laura. The university made Jason Fader interim department head and evicted me from my office. Weeks later, I received a call from Terry at 2 a.m. Ben had died of a heart attack. Before I arrived at the hospital, we struggled through the funeral, and Terry decided to move to Florida to be with her sister, leaving me feeling completely alone. Soon after, the university promoted Fader to Ben's position. He summoned me to his office, making me wait 2 hours before accusing me of plagiarism. When I asked who accused me, he grinned and said, "My wife, Laura." I soon faced another committee, chaired by the dean, investigating the plagiarism allegations against me. This time, I had an attorney and anxiously awaited Laura's testimony. She entered and glared at me with sheer hatred. My attorney silenced me as I tried to speak. Laura claimed I had stolen work from Dr. Jason Fader, with Dr. Stevens' help. My attorney couldn't disprove her story. Laura finished testifying without looking at me, and the committee soon terminated me for plagiarism. 2 weeks later, I received divorce papers from Laura. At the deposition, I kept interrupting, trying to speak to her, leading to a contempt citation from the judge. When the hearing finally occurred, the divorce was granted. Laura received 65% of our assets, the house and alimony for 2 years. As she left the courtroom, Fader comforted her. Then, Laura sued me over the TV show rights. I threw down the papers, hopped on my bike, and rode aimlessly. I assumed she won by default since I didn't attend. Everything I worked for was gone. I couldn't find a teaching job or any work in the business world. Out of options, I considered manual labor. In a coffee shop near Las Vegas, I decided to try my luck at a casino. Observing the games, I concluded blackjack had the most favorable odds for a player with a system. I started learning by watching and then playing, realizing not every player was rational. After 6 hours, I had a $3,000 profit. It was a revelation. I got a room at the casino and slept. The next day, I continued playing and learning about comps, courtesy cards, and blackjack strategies. I discovered the importance of moving between casinos to avoid drawing attention. Traveling from casino to casino, I built a nest egg and made alimony payments via postal money orders, begging Laura to call me in each letter. She never did. To avoid carrying large sums of cash, I used coin shops to exchange rare coins. After flights, I kept minimal bank accounts but maintained a visible income source to appease the IRS. Despite my growing funds, I wasn't rich enough to retire. 3 years had passed since my disgrace. The alimony ended, and on the day after Christmas, I woke up next to an escort. I had splurged because I made the mistake of calling Terry on Christmas Eve to wish her a Merry Christmas. "Hi Terry, just calling to wish you a Merry Christmas," I said. "Oh James, it's so good to hear from you. You should come spend Christmas with me." I laughed. Santa and sand just don't mix. "How are you, dear?" I was worried when I heard the news. Confused, I asked, "What news, Terry?" After a long pause, she said, "Forgive me, James. I thought you were calling to commiserate. Laura has remarried." She sobbed, and I was stunned. I'd hoped Laura might forgive me someday. "Married? She's married?" I asked, feeling detached. "Who did she marry?" "It doesn't matter, James. Please let it go," she pleaded, but I insisted. "James, she married Jason Fader. They had a baby last month." I told her I had to go and hung up. Terry called back immediately, but I ignored it and headed to the nearest bar. I ordered the best top-shelf bourbon and asked for an escort. After 3 years of abstaining, I couldn't believe Laura had moved on. I drank bourbon shots until the escort arrived. We agreed on a price, and her looks assured me she'd be worth it. Upstairs, I vented my rage. When I was spent and hungover, I showered and headed to the lobby. Bar. Normally, I didn't drink and gamble with a hangover. I knew today would be a day off. I planned to drink, hydrate, take aspirin and vitamins, and rest. I ordered a Bloody Mary at the bar, watching the busy scene around me. Suddenly, my comfort zone was disturbed when someone sat next to me. I glanced over and saw an attractive brunette trying to catch the bartender's eye. She was a blackjack dealer named Kay, who I recognized from the casino. She was competent, kind to rookies, and handled difficult players well. I always enjoyed her rotations and tipped her well, sometimes playing a hand for her to increase her tips. Though we never engaged in small talk, there was a mutual recognition. Dressed in her uniform, dark pants, white shirt, dark vest, and name tag, she smiled briefly at me before turning to the bartender. "Hi, Kay, what can I get you?" he asked. "Hi, Frank, can I get a 7-Up with no ice?" she replied. The bartender quickly gave Kay her drink, placing it on a cocktail napkin. She added another napkin under it, which seemed odd. She downed the drink in 2 gulps, slid out of the seat, and left, her hand brushing her empty cup against my drink. I found it rude but excusable given her looks. As I pushed away the empty cup, I saw a message on the napkin. "They are watching you." My pulse raced, and I stayed calm, draping my arm over the napkins and signaling the bartender to discard the cup. I pretended to clean my glasses and pocketed the napkin. Unsure if I was under surveillance, I left money for my drink and exited without incident. Back in my room, I reread the message and flushed the napkin away. I decided not to gamble, hoping a change in routine might prompt the casino to act if they had any proof against me. I spent the day watching TV, finding nothing interesting, just using it for white noise. The next morning, still undecided, I knew I had to contact Kay away from the casino's eyes and ears. From a mezzanine bar, I observed her shift and saw she took the number 7 bus home. The next day, I rode various buses to check if I was followed, but I saw no one. 20 minutes before her shift ended, I boarded the number 7 bus. When Kay got on, I whispered, "We have to talk." She recognized me, her eyes widening. She got off at the next stop, and I followed her to an IHOP. We sat, and she spoke first. "I wondered if you'd contact me. When I didn't see you, I thought you left town." "I have a lot of questions. Who are they, and why are they watching me?" I asked. She leaned back. "You know who they are and why? The casino suspects you of counting cards." "Then why haven't they come for me?" I asked. "Because they're not sure yet. They want to watch you more. You don't fit the typical card counter profile. You play the cheap tables, don't make big bets when the odds are good, and sometimes you make dumb plays and lose money." The waitress interrupted us and we placed our orders. I used the time to think of more questions. How did they spot me? Who knows? "You're just on their radar," she said. "How did you find out about me?" I asked. "They asked me to keep an eye on you." "Why warn me?" I asked. She hesitated before replying. "When I started at the casino, I was saving for college. Then I got pregnant, and my boyfriend became abusive. I left him and struggled to make ends meet. A few years ago, I reported a lucky player to my boss, and security took him away. I got a raise for it, but then heard rumors about what happened to him. I couldn't have another person on my conscience." The waitress brought our food. Before eating, I asked, "How can I trust you?" She looked me in the eye. Or you can't. After eating, we ordered more coffee. So I'm on their radar but not in trouble yet? I asked. That's right, she confirmed. I slumped in my seat, thinking about my bleak future. What's wrong? She asked. I'm out of options. Gambling was my last chance. Why? She asked. I explained my life story and scandals. After a pause, she suggested, why not switch to poker? I don't know how to play, I admitted. She was shocked. You've been winning at blackjack without knowing poker? Blackjack is simple. Beat the dealer or let them bust. I've never played poker. In poker, you're against other players, not the house. Casinos only care about their cut. They don't mind card counters. Plus, poker uses one deck per hand, she explained. I saw the advantages. Teach me, I asked impulsively. She looked skeptical. And then you leave after a few weeks? Okay, I'll rent an apartment in your name for a year, paid in advance. I'll also pay you a month for lessons up front. You'll have a safe place, no daycare costs, and I'll tutor your child. That's $6,000 immediately, plus no living expenses for a year. She weighed my offer. Finally, she said, we have a deal. I arranged to meet Kay the next day after work to move her and her daughter out of the trailer park. At p.m., I drove a U-Haul into the park, feeling uneasy about the covetous stares from the residences. Kay and her daughter, carrying large duffel bags, quickly ran to the truck. They climbed in, and with a panicked look, Kay urged me to hurry. I drove out of the park swiftly. The little girl clung to Kay, terrified of being abandoned. When I asked Kay about their belongings, she said everything else had been stolen over time. This was my first glimpse into their harsh life. After a 30-minute drive, we arrived at the apartment complex I had arranged earlier. I handed Kay the key. She carried the duffel bags and led them to their new home. The little girl excitedly explored the empty rooms. Kay explained that anything decent they had was stolen, and the rest wasn't worth moving. Mommy, only one room has furniture, the girl said. Kay introduced her to me and explained that they would stay with me temporarily. The child, wary of me, hid behind her mother. I thought you'd have more belongings. That's why I rented the truck tonight. You and Judy will sleep in my room and I'll sleep on the living room floor. Tomorrow we'll shop for furniture, I said. Kay hesitated but agreed. They retired to my room and locked the door behind them. I settled on the floor for a restless night. In the morning, I woke to see Judy staring at me. She quickly ran off. Kay asked if I had slept well. Like a log, I replied sarcastically, stretching to ease the pain. Judy's stomach growled, reminding me I hadn't stocked the kitchen. We should get breakfast and then buy furniture and groceries for your shift, I suggested. At the diner, Judy ate like she hadn't in days. Kay, embarrassed, explained their financial struggles. I told her no explanation was needed. Judy smiled when I suggested ordering blueberry muffins to go. At the furniture store, Kay initially chose the cheapest options, but I insisted on something more comfortable. Eventually, she selected a modest, well-built bedroom set for her and Judy. Judy was thrilled at the thought of a queen-sized bed and a dresser for her clothes. Well, what about the living room and kitchen? I asked, sparking another argument. Kay insisted it wasn't necessary, but I disagreed. I finally told Kay that if she didn't choose, I'd let Judy pick. That brightened Judy, and Kay quickly chose some plain, comfortable furnishings. I got a small discount by paying in cash. After loading the furniture, we headed to Costco for kitchen items, linens, and other essentials. I noticed Judy eyeing the home entertainment section. I suggested Kay and Judy handle the groceries while I took care of the other items, knowing it was pointless to argue. Kay agreed, and they went off to get another cart. When I caught up with them in the checkout line, Kay asked where I had been. Impulse shopping, I admitted. She looked guilty, but I reassured her, and we pushed the loaded cart to the van. A passerby joked about us buying out the store. I replied, it takes this much to feed the kid, making Judy laugh. We all worked hard unloading the purchases into the apartment. Kay was surprisingly strong, and we managed to get everything inside. I hesitated as I carried in the home entertainment center I had bought, complete with a inch TV, Xbox, and games. So that's why you were gone so long? Kay mock glared, as Judy danced with excitement. This is part of the teaching method, I said, bluffing. When Judy learns her lessons, she'll be rewarded. Judy eagerly examined each game. Kay went to get ready for work. When she returned in her uniform, she saw Judy and me on the floor, sorting parts for the new furniture. I was using it as a math lesson, having Judy count and calculate. Kay, amazed, watched us. All my life, I've wanted to teach, I said. She shook her head, said goodbye, and left for work. For the rest of the day, I assembled furniture and reinforced Judy's math lessons. By the time Kay returned, I had set up her bedroom. I knew. She'd rearrange it, but I made the effort. I had hamburgers grilling so Kay could relax and listen to Judy recount our day. After supper, Kay bathed Judy and retired to her bedroom. I cleaned the kitchen. When Kay returned in an oversized t-shirt and sweatpants, she still looked enticing. "Thank you for fixing my bedroom. I hope you don't mind if I move things around," she laughed. As we sat at the table, I showed her the nanny cams and how to access the feed. "If I thought you'd injure my child, we wouldn't be here. Your offer is a godsend, but if I had any suspicions, we'd stay in that hell," Kay said, her blue eyes clear now. "You've been teaching Judy all day. It's time for you to learn." She opened a deck of cards and began shuffling. We started with 5-card draw poker. Kay explained the hand rankings from royal flush to high card based on rarity and odds, something I understood. We played until late, with her consistently winning. Finally, she called it a night, saying she needed sleep. I went to sleep frustrated that I wasn't an instant success at poker, but was comforted by the lingering scent of Kay's perfume on the bed linens. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of bacon and eggs. Stumbling out of my room, I found Judy counting Cheerios at the table, adding and subtracting them before eating. Kay smiled as she finished cooking and set the table. It hit me that this simple domestic life was what I'd been missing. Meals had always been bought and eaten alone in public. A wave of depression hit me, but Kay's smile brightened my mood. I sat down, trying to engage with them, but Kay could tell something was off. After breakfast, I kept busy with Judy's math games to avoid questions from Kay. Before leaving for work, she asked if I was okay. "I will be," I lied. Weeks passed in the same routine: breakfast, lessons with Judy, Kay going to work, more lessons, dinner, Judy's bedtime, and then my poker lessons. We went through various poker games, and although I grasped the rules, I kept losing to Kay. This made me doubt my investment in our deal, but I persevered. One evening while playing Hold'em, I got a royal flush. Before I could bet, Kay folded. Frustrated, I asked how she knew. She explained that my mannerisms revealed my hand. That marked the start of my advanced poker lessons, focusing on tells, bluffs, and other strategies. Over the next 2 months, meanwhile, I continued teaching Judy, who excelled in everything from basic math to early algebra. Kay worried Judy might get bored in school, but I reassured her Judy would excel and enjoy it. On Judy's first day of school orientation, Kay took off work and asked me to join them. Nervously, she hovered around Judy like the other parents. Judy and the other kids were curious and eager to play. Just before class, Judy hugged me, surprising both Kay and me. I encouraged her, and she ran off to join her classmates. Afterward, Kay wiped away tears. I suggested we go to a park instead of staying in the apartment. We walked, ate ice cream, and sat on a bench, quietly enjoying the day. Kay began to share how she and Judy ended up in Las Vegas. She grew up with an absent and abusive father who kicked her out at 18. She moved to Vegas, met Charlie, and got pregnant. While Kay worked at a casino, Charlie stayed home, drinking and eventually cooking meth. He became abusive, and after a police raid, he threatened her from jail. Kay and Judy moved to a rundown trailer park, struggling to survive. As she talked, she started crying about losing Judy. I dropped my ice cream and held her as she cried. Passers-by stared, some thinking I was the cause. I consoled her, reminding her of her strength and resilience. She stiffened and looked at me with tear-stained eyes. "You think I'm beautiful?" "Trapped," I replied. "Yes, you're one of the most beautiful, desirable women. I wish I had a chance with you." "Why haven't you told me this before?" "I'm a discredited professor scraping by in casinos. I have no prospects, and I'm older than you. You and Judy deserve better. Living with you two is the best part of my life, and now I've jeopardized it by telling you." You finally went against your logical brain and took a big risk. It wasn't the wrong call. We kissed passionately until a police officer interrupted, checking if Kay was all right. Someone had called them due to her emotional outburst. After reassuring the officer, we laughed, feeling a deeper connection. We continued living together, growing more close. Despite Judy's presence, she noticed the change and wanted us to do more activities together, which we tried to accommodate. My confidence grew as I understood human behavior better. Kay finally declared me tell-free, and I accompanied her to the casino. An hour after she started work, I entered, feeling the urge to play blackjack, but noticed a security guard watching me. I diverted to the poker section, studying the players and their tells. After a week of observing, I discussed my findings with Kay. We agreed the casino was in a wait-and-see mode with me. Kay insisted on our practice sessions, hinting it was her way of earning her keep. We tried to progress from G-rated to R-rated activities when Judy slept, but the physical frustration was intense. I suggested Judy have a sleepover at a friend's house, but Kay said that was a couple of years away. We continued our routine, trying to manage our growing passions. As I watched the poker games, I noticed several types of players. There was the loud bully, the cautious control freak, the quiet pros, the superstitious players, and the charming women who used their looks to win. I could pick up patterns and tells on most players, but a few pros still eluded me. I knew I had to enter a game soon, as my resources were dwindling. I decided to play on Friday evening. Kay would be home with Judy and they could spend Saturday together. I planned to enter a hold'em game, where the blinds were the forced bets by two players in front of the dealer. I went to the casino rested and relaxed. My usual escort followed me to the poker table, observing as I got seated. I hoped Kay was right, that the casino wouldn't bother me unless I cheated. I bought in my chips and noted my fellow players, wondering who the sucker would be. Saturday afternoon, I stumbled back into the apartment. Kay and Judy were watching a Pixar movie. Kay looked at me with concern. "Well?" I tossed her an envelope filled with $100 bills. She whooped with joy, hugged me, and kissed me. Judy, oblivious, joined the hug. I told Judy she could pick the restaurant for dinner, and we ended up at Chuck E. Cheese's. After we ordered, Judy ran off to play, and Kay asked about my game. It went smoothly. You prepared me so well that I saw the game unfold like a chess match. I wasn't the big winner, but I did well. A pro recognized my skill, and we stayed out of each other's way. Security didn't hassle me. I cashed out and came home. Kay nuzzled up to me. "Half the money in the envelope is yours," I said. "You went above and beyond teaching me. We're partners now." Kay teared up but didn't get a chance to respond before the food and Judy arrived. I felt her foot sliding up and down my leg under the table. To keep my gambling from disrupting our lives, Kay and I set ground rules. I could only play when Judy was occupied or with Kay. I'd buy in with a set amount, wouldn't chase losses, and any profits would go into a joint account. We also committed to a weekly family activity. Our physical relationship intensified, though we were cautious with Judy in the apartment. I signed up for a satellite tournament and won, and an entry ticket to the World Series of Poker. We celebrated with an Italian meal, this time chosen by Kay. Back at the apartment, Judy went to bed, and Kay and I began our usual cuddling on the couch. She then announced she wanted to play poker. "Kay, you've got to be kidding me. You've got me all revved up and now you want to play cards?" I said, incredulous. She lingered, kissing me, then walked over to the kitchen table and got the deck of cards. As she began shuffling, a nagging thought returned to me. She noticed. "What's wrong, James? Something's bugging you every time I shuffle a deck of cards." "Well, this will keep your mind off that. We're going to play strip poker," she said matter-of-factly, continuing to shuffle. The only sound was the riffling of cards. She dealt and announced she was all in. I called her bet with a deuce and three, one of the worst hands. She stood up, stripped, and revealed her perfect body. Her eyes showed anticipation and vulnerability. I undressed, and she seemed satisfied with what she saw. We kissed and moved to my bedroom. My efforts were rewarded with her gasps and moans of satisfaction. "Oh God, James, this is wonderful," she cried, holding my hair tight. I continued to tease her until she climaxed, muffling her screams with a pillow to avoid waking Judy. "James, forgive me if I don't do this right. The only person I ever did this with was Charlie." I reassured her and we continued, miraculously ready for another round. We both exploded into bliss. Afterward, we cuddled, but Kay had to go to bed with Judy as morning was approaching. Despite my frustration, I knew this was the beginning of a deeper relationship. Each evening became an exploration of each other's desires, and we rarely went to sleep frustrated. We thought we were keeping our relationship a secret from Judy, but one night during a thunderstorm, she asked to join us in bed. I thank God we were still clothed. We comforted her, and in the morning, we all woke up together. At breakfast, Judy revealed she had known for weeks we were sleeping together. She just didn't understand why her mom couldn't stay in one bed all night. Her comments set us off laughing. Preparing for the World Series of Poker, I was nervous about media attention. Fortunately, ESPN focused on established stars, and I stayed under the radar. On my first hand, I flopped pocket aces. I decided to call the bet to build the pot. The flop came with the remaining two aces and a king of clubs, giving me four of a kind. Several players went all in, and I followed, knowing the cameras were now on us. I sat stoically as the remaining players folded, then revealed our hands. As I expected, the first bettor had nothing. The second had a pair of eights, and the fourth had a pair of kings, a full house, but not good enough. The final two cards were anticlimactic. I quadrupled my stake on the first hand, gaining the power to dictate play at the table. I kept winning pots, with everyone folding to avoid risking their chips. By the end of the day, I was among the chip leaders. Exhausted, I returned to the apartment where Kay was excited by my news. She fed me, massaged me, and put me to bed. On the second day, I was moved to another table, still in the lead. I threw my weight around, frustrating the other players, and continued to grow my stack. By the end of another day, I heard muttered curses as I left. As I continued to dominate, I drew attention. An associate producer wanted an interview. I ignored the request, but was reminded of my contractual obligation. The interview was painful. I was aloof and uncooperative, leaving the interviewer defenseless. I overheard a producer asking why I was so difficult. At the apartment, I warned Kay that trouble was brewing. She told me to focus on my cards. Then the media report came out, labeling me a disgraced professor leading the World Series of Poker. My past scandals were now national news. Players used this to get under my skin, but I kept winning. Things worsened when a news crew ambushed Kay and Judy on their way to school, bombarding Kay with questions until she took Judy back inside. They didn't tell me to keep me focused. Despite the stress, we reached the point where every remaining player would get a cash prize. I was thrilled but unaware of the morning's events. Kay and Judy were under immense stress. Kay was questioned at work about our relationship, and Judy faced taunts at school. They protected me while I quietly climbed the ranks. Eventually, we reached the final table. The tournament paused for more TV coverage. I agreed to a statement about my past without answering questions on camera. I recounted my life factually, apologizing for my previous interview, and explaining my desire to protect Kay and Judy. Choking up, I ended with a plea to leave them alone. I returned to the apartment, where we began to decompress from the stress. Days passed, and we all recovered, knowing the payday would be substantial. Meanwhile, my interview gained traction, aired by multiple TV stations. An enterprising reporter tracked down Terry Stevens, who corroborated my story. Then they searched for my 3 accusers, but I wouldn't learn about that until later. All I wanted was to spend time with Kay and Judy before the hiatus ended. I suggested a trip to the Grand Canyon. We packed a picnic and spent a peaceful day there. As we approached the apartment, Judy ran inside first. While Kay and I gathered things from the car, I sensed something was off. How did Judy get in the house? Before it registered, I heard her scream. Kay rushed in, screaming and struggling with a tall, unkempt man holding Judy in a large hunting knife. "God damn it, cow, I'll eliminate her if you don't get off me," he roared. Hearing the threat, Kay backed off, begging for Judy's life. "Please, Charlie, please don't hurt Judy," she sobbed. "I want the money your boyfriend won at the tournament. Give me all the money, and you and this little crap will live. I'm still going to mark you, but you'll live." Kay tried to explain that the huge stacks of chips were just for show and that no one had received them yet, but Charlie, high on meth, wasn't listening. He had made parole, found out Kay and Judy had disappeared, and then saw them on TV. He broke into the apartment, ransacked it for money, and was now threatening them. Kay's appeals only agitated him more. I had to divert his attention. "Hey, Charlie, I'm the one you need to deal with. I'll give you everything I've got if you don't hurt Judy. Let her go, and we can make a deal." Recognizing me, Charlie sneered. "Yeah, I know you. You're the sorry son of a cow who took this cow away from me. You want her? You're going to have to pay." Judy tried to break free, and he brandished the knife near her throat. I lunged and grabbed his knife hand, forcing him to release Judy. She ran to Kay as I yelled, "Run!" and turned my attention to Charlie. We struggled, but he was stronger, built up from prison exercises. The knife slashed me, and I retreated, trying to buy time for Kay and Judy to escape. Bleeding from multiple wounds, I continued to guard the door. Charlie enjoyed maiming me, but as I weakened, he sensed the need to escape. He rushed me, and we both went down. I tried to keep the knife away, but he used his free hand to pummel my face. I was losing, just as I had failed all my life. My vision blurred, and I knew I was about to lose everything. My last sight was Charlie's triumphant face as he prepared to finish me. "Don't hurt my daddy," Judy yelled. The words pained me more than any injury. Then I felt a painful electrical shock, and everything faded to black. The annoying beep brought me around. My fuzzy brain struggled to locate the source. When I opened my eyes and saw white ceiling tiles, I heard someone say, "He's coming around." Activity buzzed around me, and then I knew Kay was there. I felt her warm, soft hand gripping mine as she cried over me. I tried to talk, but she just shook her head and smiled. Then everything faded again. When I woke up again, Kay was still there, holding my hand. I was in intensive care. Kay reassured me that I had lost a lot of blood and needed stitches, but I'd be okay. The police had tasered us both before Charlie could finish me off. I would be moved to a regular room soon. I tried to talk but couldn't, and I drifted back to sleep. When I woke up again, I was in a different room with Kay still by my side. Despite her exhaustion, "You need to go home and rest," I told her. She refused, saying she and Judy were fine up here. The mention of Judy reminded me of her cries and pain crossed my face. The last thing I heard was Judy begging me not to hurt her daddy. I thought we were a family, and losing that was the worst part, I said sadly. Listen, Kay said sharply. We are a family. Judy was crying for you. And you know how I know? You told me to go home, not to the apartment, but to our home. Anywhere we are together is home. Before I could respond, Judy jumped on the bed, crying, Daddy, Daddy. I began bawling as I held her. The three of us cried together while the nurses gave us a moment. Once we calmed down, Kay updated me. Charlie's actions were caught on our nanny cams, ensuring a long prison sentence. The video was released nationally. The World Series of Poker had contacted Kay to ask if I could continue. She left the decision to me. What do you think, Kay? Should I continue or give up? Tell me what you want, Kay smiled. I'm just happy you asked. This is your decision. Your family is behind you. That's how I found myself at the final table, weathered but determined. I played low-key and watched others battle. The blinds increased, but I bided my time. One player, a classic bully, taunted and insulted everyone, including me, using my history to get under my skin. The World Series would penalize him for misuse, but stopping him would show he got to me. I bore it in silence. When we finally clashed, he mentioned my past and I remained calm, losing the hand. I watched him celebrate obnoxiously. Play continued, and I managed to hang on by taking the blinds occasionally. Eventually, it was just three. Of us, the bully, me, and a guy with a short stack who soon went all in and lost. Then it was just me and the bully. Las Vegas showgirls carried trays of $100 stacks, creating a mountain of chips for a dramatic visual, despite the impracticality. Now the battle was one-on-one, and the bully unleashed every insult he could. He crossed the line, calling Kay a meth-head cow, and saw it hurt me. I told him he could say anything about me but to leave my family out of it. He sneered. I tried to think of something else, and the Hodge conjecture popped into my head, distracting me. Despite the bully's taunts, I continued to play well. When I took half his chips with a full house, I sarcastically asked if he was going to do a victory dance. Enraged, he insulted Kay again, and I almost lunged at him, causing a pause in the game. I looked at Kay and Judy in the audience, both upset. When the game resumed, I knew the bully had achieved his goal. I was on tilt. I tried to calm down by thinking of Kay shuffling cards when we played strip poker. The shuffle reminded me of equations in the Hodge conjecture. My mind raced with calculations, and I became oblivious to the game. I was shaken back to reality, realizing I hadn't looked at my cards and 5 million chips were in the pot. I looked at Kay and yelled, "The conjecture!" She seemed to understand its significance. I re-raised without looking at my cards, flustering the bully. When the flop came, I went all in without knowing my cards. I walked over to Kay, holding her as the uproar continued. The bully called the bet, and I hit a jack-high flush against his straight. Luck was on my side. Pandemonium erupted, and I was eventually brought back for the winner's presentation. The bully stormed out, and I gave a few remarks, refusing the gaudy champion's bracelet in favor of a paper bracelet Judy made for me. We celebrated in a penthouse, courtesy of the casino. When we settled in, Kay made everything worthwhile. Afterward, I requested legal pads, pens, and a laptop to start working. 3 months later, an article titled, "The Solution to Hodge's Conjecture by the Vonsky Shift," authored by Dr. Ben Stevens and Dr. James Reed, caused a stir in the math world. Terry Stevens and I were awarded $1 million for solving the conjecture. CBS's 60 Minutes featured me as a bad boy math genius. They tracked down Karen Hudgen and my other accusers of physical misconduct. One cracked, and the others recanted, revealing that Jason Fader and the dean had coerced them. Jason had traded grades for lovemaking, videotaped the acts, and blackmailed the girls. Karen and the others were forced to accuse me to get their videos back. Minutes aired a snippet showing Jason and the dean with the girls, followed by Karen tearfully begging for my forgiveness. The university's Board of Trustees announced an investigation, and the segment ended with the iconic ticking watch. As soon as the show ended, the phone rang off the hook. I monitored caller IDs to avoid people I didn't want to talk to, mainly old friends and colleagues who had abandoned me and now wanted to assure me they always knew I was innocent. Then my parents called. Though they had been quick to judge, I decided to hear them out. The only person I was happy to hear from was Terry Stevens. We cried together, knowing vindication had finally come, though at a great cost. The university's Board of Trustees reached out, inviting me to return. I flew back with Kay and Judy, fielding various offers. I told them I would discuss it with Kay and get back to them. In the VIP lounge at the airport, I saw Laura walking toward me. Despite the years, she was still beautiful. "Hello, Reed," she said, and her voice made my knees weak. I managed to croak out, "Hello, Laura." I had so many ways to start this conversation, but now my mind is blank. I thought about crashing the trustees' party, but since the dean, Jason, and I are persona non grata, I thought better of it. We've been unofficially notified we will be terminated. Girls are coming forward about Jason's scheme, some from during my marriage. I left him. I'm going back home with my son to start over. I know I don't deserve it, but I want you to consider us. We were perfect together for so many years. I loved you so much, but when I heard that awful testimony, it clouded my judgment. I lashed out to hurt you. You'd love my son if you met him. You'd see a beautiful little boy. If it's not too late, would you consider us? If not, I understand. I'd like your forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking. I stood there stunned. Laura, seeing you brings back happy memories. In a perfect world, we'd start over. She brightened up. But we're not in a perfect world. Kay might be an alley cat compared to you, but she's my alley cat. She'd stand by me no matter what. Our relationship is unbreakable. We'll love each other for the next years, until one of us dies. Her face fell as I continued. I can forgive you for what you did to me because it led me to Kay, but I can't forgive you for how you treated Ben. He loved you like a daughter, and you abandoned him. You didn't attend his service or support Terry. You participated in academic dishonesty against him. So no, I can't forgive you. I hope you and your son find happiness, but not with my blessing. Laura began to cry. A flight attendant told me my companion, Miss Franke, and our daughter had already boarded the plane. Laura recognized Kay's maiden name from my paper. I turned and walked toward the Gulfstream jet, a perk from the trustees' party. Soon I was cruising at feet with Judy in my lap, busy with her coloring book. I closed my eyes, trying to let go of the residual pain. With closure from Laura, I felt a nudge and opened my eyes to see Judy wanting my attention. I looked at her algebra scribbles and told her they were correct. She smiled and returned to her book. Kay, amused, was shopping for a baby bassinet on her laptop. Closing my eyes again, I reflected on how, despite the imperfect world, finding your soulmate makes every play worthwhile. Then I felt another nudge from my little munchkin.